Dan Orlovsky.
Yo, that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing.
And we have Mina Kimes, of course, Jeff Darlington joining us as well, and we'll have Todd McShay too. Happy Star Wars Day, everybody. I guess I have to sit back down now, but that little trip through the galaxy was fun. All right, I promise I'm done with that. Trey Lance has been thrust into the spotlight for the 49ers. Let's start there. I'm not saying he's ready to play quarterback in the National Football League yet, but time will tell. Either way, he's ready for the pressure that accompanies this role. His mantra growing up, know your worth. It seems like Jimmy G knows that worth as well. Here's what he said today on KJZ.
The communication has been good. You know, there really hasn't been anything unsaid. Everything's been put on the table, and it's kind of one of those situations, you know, I'm just happy to have the opportunity to play football. All you really need is an opportunity. I mean, if you get an opportunity, you got to take advantage of it, and that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I try to use my own personal experiences. So it's kind of, you know, come a full circle. You go through this NFL career, and you start as a young guy, come in. Tom kind of showed me the ropes. The competition between us was awesome. Really made me grow as a rookie and a young player. And so that's kind of what me and Trey will mold our relationship into that, but it'll happen naturally. It's one of those things you can't force anything, just let it come as it may.
So, Jeff, it certainly sounds like Jimmy G's saying all the right things, but what's your reaction to hearing what he said and how this relationship really will look like?
Well, Laura, you can actually believe what Jimmy is saying there, and I can tell you that from the conversations that I've had over the years about Jimmy Garoppolo. I know it feels cliche when you hear an NFL quarterback try to say the right things. Jimmy Garoppolo all along has said the right things inside that building, and honestly, knowing Kyle Shanahan like I do, I understand that Kyle is a pretty shrewd guy when it comes to some of these moves. Like, he probably would have moved on from Jimmy a while ago had it not been for just the absolute professional approach that Jimmy has taken through everything, every bit of adversity, the ups and the downs. Now, the one thing I'll say here, the interesting component is he compared himself in this situation with Trey Lance to Tom Brady in New England. And you heard him say not that Tom mentored him, but that they had a competitive relationship. And that's the way Tom treats his backups. So it is interesting in the sense that Tom doesn't coddle his backup quarterbacks. He competes against them. He doesn't give up reps necessarily. Jimmy is a nice guy. We call him Jimmy Nice Guy. But he will absolutely go into this with a competitive spirit that will not just be succeeding to Trey Lance. This will be a solid competition in training camp, and I don't expect Garoppolo, with a smile on his face, to give this job up very easily.
Yeah, talking about Brady and his backups, I'm thinking about Kyle Trask, who just got drafted by the Buccaneers, but we'll table that for now. And Dan, let's talk about the 49ers a little more here. What is the benefit to keeping Jimmy G on this roster?
Yeah, there's value to keeping him. It's just I don't think as the starting quarterback. And I think the 49ers are best suited to figure out what are the pros and cons to keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. The pros are that you've got a veteran quarterback that you know when he's healthy, you got a chance to win some football games. That matters for a head coach and general manager that have losing seasons 3 out of the last 4 years. It matters for Trey Lance to have a guy that's been in the huddle, that's seen defenses in the NFL. I always say this, it's great to have a quarterback or a quarterback coach for a young quarterback that can tell him what's real or what's not. You know, hey, yeah, versus this blitz, you can do this, or this is an answer. So those are the pros to keeping Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, the cons are that what happens if Jimmy Garoppolo becomes your starter and all of a sudden plays really well to start the season? What do you do then? What happens if Trey Lance is your starter and struggles? And then it becomes like an elephant in the room of, okay, what are we going to do? Again, head coach and general manager that kind of, need to have success this year. I also think you always risk fracturing a locker room. Guys form allegiances and friendships and personalities or personal relationships with certain players. So I think at the end of the day, they've got to weigh what are the pros, what are the cons to both keeping and getting rid of him, where they value it the most. But I think at the end of the day, it pays dividends for Trey Lance and this football team to keep Jimmy Garoppolo, just not as their starting quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's telling that after the Niners made the trade up to pick 3, there weren't really many trade rumors, if at all, floated, frankly, which you would think if a team was making such a clear decision, obvious to everyone, they were moving on from their quarterback, you'd at least hear whispers of offers being floated. To me, it suggests that San Francisco views Jimmy in that locker room maybe higher than the rest of the league because of his value to Trey Lance, to the organization. They're looking at the quarterback position holistically. They're not spending that much money on 2 players. But also, the reality is Jimmy Garoppolo, he is a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, but he's the 4th best quarterback in the NFC West, which is a very difficult decision. I don't think anyone would disagree with me about those rankings now, especially with the Rams acquiring Matt Stafford, and San Francisco has a roster that's better than the 4th best roster in their division, and that's why they moved on. There's no uncertainty about the reasoning behind this decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love his perspective, y'all. And listen, we know the competition is going to be a huge part of it, but we also know in the back of our mind when San Francisco gave all that they gave up, whatever quarterback they took was going to be their starter. Jimmy G understands that as well. We could talk about competition and what happens if the plan is for the 3rd overall pick to become the starter. Here's the thing for me, though, and what I respect so much about what Jimmy G said. He understands his position now with the San Francisco 49ers. He can talk about being a starter and potentially maybe for a few games, but he knows this is inevitable. And I think about Jimmy's career, right? This is a quarterback that got $100 million to go to San Francisco, played in the Super Bowl. I'm not sure if Jimmy thought his career would turn out like it has. I don't know when he was drafted to the New England Patriots that he thought that this would be in his future and he would be amongst the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL. So the perspective is great. And I think Jimmy G sits back, looks at this situation and says, you know what, I've accomplished already way more than I probably thought I would, or even what I was set up to accomplish. Now my time in San Francisco is coming to an end, and I'm going to have an opportunity to go somewhere else and potentially play or even be a guy in a backup role that could be strong. But his days in San Francisco are numbered, and I don't think it's insensitive for any of us to say that.
Yeah, I'd say 3 things that are important with the conversation is 1, competitive, not combative between them two. Can they do that? That's more important than anything. 2, Jimmy Garoppolo's mindset is everything. Like, if he takes this with the correct mindset, which is hard because quarterbacks are territorial, then it has a chance to work out. And it's also important to remember, like, Trey Lance is like Grogu. He's a little baby. I mean, this kid's not even 21 years old. I got a Mandalorian reference in first block of the show. He's not 21 yet. He's a young player. So it is important to have experience and age around him.
Yeah, to your point, Lance just one of 5 quarterbacks ever drafted before the age of 21 years old. But if you ask Trey Lance, he's tired of talking about how he's 20. He wants to talk about how he can bring a lot to the table. All right, let's get Jeff back in here. Take us through some more top stories. Let's start with the Ravens, Jeff.
Well, this is a big one, guys. They might have found their replacement for Orlando Brown Jr. We've got free agent Alejandro Villanueva signing with the team 11 days after they traded the Pro Bowl tackle away to the Chiefs. So a pretty big deal. Contract worth reportedly $14 million, $8 million fully guaranteed. So Villanueva will absolutely be competing for that job. We've got an interesting one in Minnesota that actually happened during the draft, reported by Courtney Cronin, that the Vikings actually had their QB board stacked at a point where they were talking about taking a quarterback much earlier than they ended up doing. They took a quarterback in the 3rd round. That's the earliest they've taken one since Teddy Bridgewater. Kirk Cousins might soon have some competition if the Vikings keep these types of plans on the table. Tom Brady getting cute again on social media, talking about Julian Edelman. Tweeting out, we know Julian didn't retire. Let's be honest, he's just too scared to tell Bill Belichick he wants to come to Tampa. I've been there. Tom Brady is kidding here, or is he?
Yeah.
That's a question that we'll wonder.
Yeah, I
DK
guess.
Metcalf, by the way, another interest. Oh, yeah, sorry, go ahead, Laura.
No, you go. I was just talking about Tom Brady's jokes.
No.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I know, and they are funny. But one more thing for you, DK Metcalf. We know how fast he is. We have seen it firsthand many times.
Track star.
He might be taking his speed into a little bit of an Olympic take, 4.3340, and now he's actually going to be competing for some Olympic-type trials. So that should be fun to watch as
don't
DK
worry.
Metcalf takes himself off the football field.
Don't worry, Mina. That doesn't mean he's going to leave the Seahawks. All right, we got plenty more coming your way on NFL Live. Aaron Rodgers still wants out of Green Bay. We got some landing spots, but how big of a price would it be for teams to get him?